Science and faith can be integrated. They are both gifts that God gives us.
I did not see in the whole hour and 45 minutes that I was swimming one single fish, but I did see a lot of plastic.
The bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were small by today's standards. The hydrogen bombs developed years later have 10 times the radius of destruction.
I think it's time that we tell stories about things that matter.
We don't have to live this way. Things don't have to be the way they've always been.
I'm going to be bold and say this can be the voice of this generation.
America is based on capitalism, but also equally a democracy. If you're just caring about the capitalist side, you're just doing 50% of what America's supposed to be.
The last thing I did was create the Malala Fund with the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, Malala.
I'm the grandson of Jacques Cousteau, environmental activist, filmmaker, social entrepreneur, and author.
I'm a singer-songwriter. I was part of the United Nations campaign to end violence against women.
I'm a stand-up comedian, and I have a podcast last week on Earth to get people to look at issues a different way than they ever have.
I started Gender Proud, advocating for transgender rights.
I founded the Thirst Project, which today is the world's largest youth water activism organization.
What is the show about? But inspiring other people to aspire.
Climate change is a very divisive issue. Despite overwhelming scientific evidence, some people say, show me some evidence. But for those who do believe climate change is real, things have hardly ever seemed worse. But there is a glimmer of hope coming from an unlikely place, young evangelicals. So I met with a young woman who believes global warming is a test of faith, and she is ready to answer the challenge. Take a look. Like something out of the Bible, climate change has been billed as the end times. Freakish weather events like Hurricanes Harvey and Irma are now commonplace.
The will to act is itself a renewable resource.
All of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay?
Long before Trump called it a hoax, climate change was a political wedge issue. Democrats and liberals on one side and Republicans and conservatives on the other. Leaders on the religious right have joined the fray, long denying that climate change even exists.
The climate on Mars is changing, and Mars doesn't have any SUVs on it.
However, a group of young evangelicals want to upend that status quo and bridge the political divide with something called faith-based environmentalism. I traveled to Northwest Iowa, the land of Christ and corn, to learn more.
Welcome to Central, and we're glad you're here. Let's join together in worship.
When people think climate change, they usually think evangelical Christians. I'm kidding. Nobody usually thinks that. But thanks to a group named Young Evangelicals for Climate Action, that may be all about to change.
I am both an evangelical and an environmentalist. Science and faith can be integrated. They are both gifts that God gives us, science and scripture, to help us better understand the world. I feel that God has really called me towards climate action. Young Evangelicals for Climate Action is an organization that seeks to mobilize people of my generation around climate action. And so,
started only a few years ago, Young Evangelicals for Climate Action has built a nationwide network of a few thousand, mostly millennial Christians, all working to spread the gospel of green.
God of grace and salvation, today we open our eyes, ears, and hearts to the pain of our planet.
So why do you think it's such a hard concept for a lot of evangelicals to get on board with?
I think a lot of evangelicals have the mindset that God is in control of the earth, that he'll come in and save the day. Before, evangelicals have only encountered the issue of climate change through science and through the media.
Climate change is real. It is the most urgent threat facing our entire species.
Since evangelicals only hear about climate change from Hollywood celebrities and finger-wagging liberals, they've come to discount the message.
Let us not take this planet for granted. I do not take tonight for granted. Thank you so very much.
But Leonardo DiCaprio keeps telling us that the climate's changing. Why don't people listen to Leo? He's a great actor.
But a lot of people see them as not being authentic because you still see them living out their daily lives. in these extravagant ways and still flying their private jets around, and they think, why should I change or care?
So what was it like growing up here?
It's a close-knit, small community, so everybody tends to look out for each other. People here are very satisfied with the status quo, the way things are, and this is the way it's been, and this is the way they want it to continue to be. So, I mean, most farmers are pretty wealthy.
Wow, look at that, yeah. I can see why they wouldn't want to change. They got a mansion like that. Gorgeous.
It's hard for a lot of people to think into the future. Like, they do care about their children, but they just think, well, they'll figure it out for themselves.
To get her community to think differently about climate change, Lindsay knew she would have to start with her longtime pastor, Reverend Van Rathbun.
Amen. I was a little taken aback when we first started talking about these things. It's really an ironic, almost a counterbalance thing for conservative Christians, because this is not exactly the banner-carrying agenda. And I said, well, let's get together, Lindsay, for a cup of coffee, and let me listen to what you have to say. What happens is clearly in God's control. And I think that's where the climate issue seems so far removed from folks.
Do you feel like you're at a place where you would be comfortable integrating a message of the environment to take it upon evangelicals to really help stop that?
That's why we're here, right?
I mean, yeah. How do you define the issue of climate change?
It's hard for me to get my head around the long-termness of the issue. Polar ice caps make a difference. You know, what's happening there make a difference in my community. It's hard to get our heads around that.
Pastor Van acknowledges that climate change is a problem, but doesn't think of it as an urgent crisis the way Lindsay does.
We have this deep love for our Creator, and you can't love the Creator without loving His creation. I've heard it said, you can't love the painter Rembrandt and then go to a museum and spit on his paintings.
Right. You agree with that?
Oh, I do. But as I'm hearing her say this, I'm hearing this echo of other voices in my head saying, well, that's not what I'm called to.
From your perspective, Pastor Van, how has the issue changed for you?
Well, I think it's been a learning curve for me, and Lindsay's been great at helping me understand more.
Pastor Van is open to what I have to say about climate change, and just like most people, he has to come to his own conclusions, and we're working through that together. I think if you really look close at the intricacies and interconnectedness of all of nature, it's pretty hard not to see how God is there in nature. I believe that we live in God's green earth and that all of creation is continually singing His praises, His wisdom orchestrating it all so perfectly, and I think that really shows that we serve an incredible God.
The fact that she's talking about it, she's going one-on-one with her community, I think it's a glimmer of hope.
It's such a big issue. It's really hard for us to grasp. Like, how do we digest the problem so that it's relatable to us? And if we could all find that, no matter what group, what religion, what political thing you subscribe to, I think that would be amazing.
That's a big part of why I think what Lindsay and Young Evangelicals for Climate Action is doing is so interesting, because it really is flipping the paradigm of how people typically see climate change. It's so ridiculous that something that you would think makes perfect sense to be a religious issue, right, to take care of God's green earth, where it seems like only liberals are supposed to believe it's true, and then conservatives who are supposed to conserve, it's in the name, supposed to protect the planet, think, oh no, we're supposed to just let God take care of it. It makes perfect sense to look at this from a religious standpoint and not let it be another issue hijacked by politics. To take action, go to the URL on screen to ask your congressperson to join the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus, or to thank them if they've already joined.
My name is Tony.